His first book blamed Wall Street for looting America, but now his new book is a step-by-step guide on how to become a millionaire member of the nation's 1%. Joining RT for an exclusive interview is author Les Leopold. Thank you very much for sitting down with me once again.
Thank you for having me.
Your new book is called How to Make $1 Million an Hour: Why Hedge Funds Get Away with Siphoning Off America's Wealth. What is the purpose of this book? What was your motivation for writing it?
Well, I wanted to try to get at how it's possible to have such an amazingly skewed income distribution. How is it possible in 2010, after the crash, for a hedge fund person to make $4.9 billion that year? That's over $2 million an hour. How is that possible? When I dug into it, I found some amazing things. That a hedge fund manager can make in 1 hour what the average American family makes in 47 years. Think about the justice in that. 1 hour versus 47 years. I knew something was wrong there, and I had to go find out why.
You say that hedge fund secrets make it possible to pull down astounding sums in the space of minutes, as long as one is willing to bankrupt their morality for the cash. What do you mean by that?
Well, one of the biggest scams that was going on, I'm sure you've heard of these books that talked about the Big Short, all the ways the smart people that bet against the housing market, and they did so well, and weren't they, geniuses for doing so? What they did was they worked with these large investment banks to create securities that were designed to fail. They were packaging products that were designed to fail. Then they bet on them to fail. So they made their billions of dollars by selling a product and then betting on it failing. Think about this. It would be like designing a car that was going to crash, and then you took insurance out on the car so that you could get the benefits of the crash. That's what they were doing, and I'm not exaggerating. The federal government investigated several of these. Every large bank was involved in this. JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, you name it, they all did this with hedge funds, and to try to make a killing.
You maintain that Wall Street gets too big of a portion of the national income, and you say that should be changed. But politicians are usually more in sync with the financiers than they are with the average constituents. So how can you realistically expect any type of change?
Well, here's where the change is going to come from. Right now, most people believe that if you make a lot of money, you must be producing value for society. Being rich means being successful, meaning somehow you're doing something important for society. What this book is designed to do is to show that that's not true. And that's the first thing we have to do. We have to break apart the notion that these people are, quote unquote, successful. They make a lot of money, but when you look at how they make it, it's impossible to say that they're producing any value for society. Once we do that, it's going to be a little easier to make the case to politicians and the public as a whole that this is outrageous. As a matter of fact, I think most Americans already understand that this is outrageous. The problem is that politicians are tied to all that money that comes into their campaigns. What the American people now understand is that when you let these people play their game, they will take down the economy. They will unemploy millions upon millions of people without batting an eyelash. And that's a volatile mix for in America. I think if any politician really had the guts to go after Wall Street, they could ignite the kind of passion that led to Occupy Wall Street. People don't like the fact that they're getting ripped off, and they know they're being ripped off by Wall Street.
You're essentially saying that the U.S. financial elite, the majority of it, is effectively robbing the people. So do you believe that the rising inequality between the rich and poor in America, the widening inequality, is a man-made disaster?
Absolutely. It's well put. It's exactly that. A series of policy changes took place in the late 70s, early 80s, and then all the way through, that led directly to the growing gap, the growing income distribution gap between the super rich and everybody else. And it's precisely the hedge funds that pull up the inequality. Look, if some 30-something person's making 20, 30, 50, $100 million a year, well, then every banker says, hey, I want to be paid like that too. Every finance person says, I want to be paid like that too. And then the CEOs of regular companies say, wait a second, I've got 20,000 employees. How come I'm not getting that? So it pulls up the inequality, and that's what has to be stopped.
Now, a large part of the income that Wall Street receives is virtual. It comes from trading financial instruments. It's not backed by commodities. How big is that disconnect?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. They've totally forgot. They don't even think about whether or not what they do is good for the economy or that it produces a product. If they can do it, they do it. And it's more profitable for banks and hedge funds to play in this casino than it is for them to put the money in the real economy. Why is it that lending from the large banks is still so meager for businesses across the country? It's because they can make more money playing in these casinos. As long as we allow these casinos to operate, that's where the money will go, because they can make more money there. And they have some incredibly ingenious schemes for doing it.
Well, how long can these type of shenanigans or imbalances continue until we see a possible, implosion of the global economy?
An implosion could happen at any time. It'll go on as long as we allow it. It's a creation of human beings. It's not an act of God. We deregulated, we could re-regulate. For example, if we put a financial transaction tax on every single buying, selling of a stock, a derivative, a future, any financial instrument, you begin to suck some of this money out of Wall Street and put it back into the real economy. And what you want to do is shrink Wall Street down to size. You want to eliminate these outrageous salaries and bonuses. You want to eliminate that so people will say, you know what, maybe I won't go to Wall Street, maybe I'll go work in healthcare industry, or maybe I'll go work in a university or research. They're smart people, but what they're doing is they're using their talents to produce nothing at all. And not only is it nothing, but it can be a dangerous something that they produce. It can actually pull down the economy. There's a chart that shows wages since World War II in the financial sector and the non-financial sector. And from World War II up to the mid-1970s or right around 1980, the two lines are identical. In other words, it didn't matter whether, given your skill and education, whether you worked on Wall Street or worked in manufacturing, you earned about the same. Then after deregulation, the non-financial sector goes flat and the Wall Street sector goes straight up. Mm-hmm. How did that happen? It happened because we made it super profitable to work on Wall Street.
How do you believe the world should or can react to the information that you're disclosing? It's not necessarily all new, but you're saying that it's escalating.
Right. I think for starters, step one is we've got to get rid of the tax breaks that they use. They have hedge funds and private equity firms use this thing called carried interest, where they can claim that their income is really capital gains, which is now taxed at 20% instead of the new rate of 39.6. I mean, it's outrageous that they get a tax break. Why are the richest people on earth getting a tax break? Mm-hmm. Why would a billionaire need a tax break? And they're not even creating any jobs, as far as I can tell. Mm-hmm. So, in fact, they destroyed a bunch of jobs. So that's step one, get rid of their tax break. But step two is we need to find ways to suck the money out of the financial sector. There's too much loose money floating around there, and the way to do it is through a financial transaction tax. They call it a Robin Hood tax. Mm-hmm. Europe is, several countries in Europe now are moving in this direction. A, because they need the resources, and B, they have no patience for this.
Speaking of the European crisis, financial crisis, do you believe the U.S. is exposed to the EU financial crisis?
It's all one system.
It's all one system.
Yeah, money moves so fast now. It's all one system. I mean, the banks that we're talking about, they're all global. And by the way, they're larger than they ever were before.
And what's the consequence of that?
Consequences are we're very likely to face another crash. And this is the killer. We're going to bail out these institutions again. We are going. I'm only going to make one prediction here, other than if you stick with me and use this 12-point guide, you too will make $1 million an hour. Other than that, I will guarantee that we will, if this goes unregulated, we will face another crash And we will bail out the very institutions we're saying we would never bail out again, because they're bigger now. The 5 largest banks in the United States account for 52% of all the banking assets. They're bigger than they were before the crash. You think we're going to let those 5 go under? No way are we going to let those 5 go under, unless we replace the whole banking system with a government system.
What are some of the steps and points to be able to make $1 million an hour?
Step 1 is you have to want to be richer than the pharaohs. You can't just settle to be like Tiger Woods or even Oprah or a movie star, Tom Cruise or something. That's not enough. That's only 70, 80 million a year. You got to want $1 billion a year. So you have to really think of yourself as one of God's chosen elites. That you're going to be smarter and richer than anybody that walked the face of the earth. So that's step 1. You have to have the drive. The last step, which I kind of want to get to, is you have to be willing to crush your opponents. You have to be able to deflect the dissenters. I got a taste of this. I wrote a piece that questioned one of these hedge fund people about them designing bets that would fail. And I wrote in my piece that why, if this person's so smart, why are they engaged in a near criminal conspiracy? Next thing I know, they threatened to sue me for saying that the person was involved in a criminal conspiracy. And I said, wait a second, is near criminal, that means like nearly having sex. Isn't there a difference between nearly having it and the real thing? Isn't there a difference between being in a near criminal conspiracy and the real thing? But they're coming after me with an army of lawyers. Mm-hmm. So their goal was to get that piece removed. And you know what? They succeeded. I couldn't fight them.
Do hedge fund managers really make $1 million an hour?
Yeah.
They do?
More than one.
Wow.
More than one. And by the way, by the time this conversation is done, had we gotten our proper $1 million an hour, we would have earned $217,000. So please talk to your boss about getting a raise.
I will talk to him about that. Les Leopold, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me.